So, hello everyone. I see that I'm a little bit less of the technical person, so I guess there are some people going to lunch already, which is not a problem. I hope when you're interested in e-commerce that you are joining, so it will be maybe an open discussion a bit. I hope you had a good couple of days. It's been quite exciting probably and incredible. But in the next 20 minutes, I'm actually going to share my journey, my e-commerce journey, and why Odoo has been important, then in some years a little less important, and what I've learned about implementing Odoo for some e-commerce companies. So these are the following points on the agenda. So first of all, of course, I'm going to introduce myself a bit, then I'm going to zoom in on our own e-commerce experiences and stories. And then in the third point, I'm going to zoom in a bit on why Odoo, why we chose Odoo. So I'm 32 years old. I'm getting a bit gray and bald, but I'm still full of energy to embark on the mission to help e-commerce companies implementing Odoo and working with Odoo in a more efficient way. So I've been co-founding a couple of e-commerce companies, so that's why I'm also probably talking about e-commerce and how we implemented Odoo to help the e-commerce companies. The e-commerce story that we've been through actually started 6 years ago with our own products that we have generated. We had no clue that we were ever going to use Odoo. We didn't know Odoo at all. Actually, I got into contact with Odoo on a VOCA weekend. And Calista, the people from Calista, introduced us to Odoo, and then I had no clue that we were ever going to need it. Of course, we were a bootstrapped company, so we didn't have any money to implement the real Odoo version, so we just set up our own server and bootstrapped our way into figuring out how to use Odoo as an e-commerce company. Back in the day, maybe that's interesting to know, that we had actually had our website on Shopify, so we had to connect it to Odoo because Odoo was our invoicing system, our sales system, our CRM tool, etc., etc. But then our online store was actually on Shopify, so we worked hard on getting the connection right, which was not really super easy back in the days because we had a quite specific setup in Shopify as well, so that was very interesting. We did a crowdfunding campaign back in the days, like probably every D2C company should have started, right? And then we actually, which is quite a funny story, we got acquired by an American company, which was Fully, and they actually then used our team to introduce Fully, which was a brand. I think I'll be able to show the video just for a second. So this is just to show you what Fully does. I mean, it was also focused on standing desks and having a more ergonomic type of work environment. So I'm just going to show you the kind of products that they sell. This is like a promotional video, of course, but it's interesting to see. So it has everything to do with like having motion while you're at work. So they bought into our way of working and the products that I just showed you guys. So it's just 10 seconds. So yeah, the standing desk was a very important part of our business, obviously. So I think you get the point. It's also quite American, which is a point that will come back probably afterwards, because they had no clue how difficult it was to have a European company and to implement all the VAT-related stuff, etc. So actually they bought us. We then became the team to introduce Fully to the European market. And I was actually involved, or I was responsible for the whole systems setup, we called it, within Fully. So they actually had a completely different stack. So we were on Shopify and on Odoo, and they were on Magento and on Netsuite. So I was in charge of implementing, or actually getting rid of our Shopify and Odoo implementation and actually migrate to Magento and Netsuite. And that's actually part of the framework why I love Odoo now and why I think Odoo is a lot better than the Netsuite implementation that we did for Fully, because it was very heavy, extremely costly. I think the first project that we did to integrate the whole European part into the Netsuite environment was like probably 200K or something. We spent 8 or 9 months to set everything up, basically because the American people, they didn't understand how a company should be set up in Europe. but also because it's so closed off, right, as a system. Then fully got acquired by Knoll, which is a big company in America, and then that's when I actually just left the company to start our own agency, because we had such a cool experience building e-commerce companies, integrating everything from a systems point of view, so the website and integrating the ERP system, that we said, okay, let's start an agency that is built around that specific knowledge. So that's what we did. Some of the technical implications or difficulties that we worked a lot with, and it's maybe quite funny to people in the audience, that we had to work so hard to make this happen, because some of these things are quite easy to implement on Odoo, but everything VAT related was a huge pain in the ass. We were selling in every country in Europe. We had to have VAT numbers back in the days. It was before the OSS setup. And we had to make sure that everybody got the right invoices with the right VAT number on it, with the right VAT rates, etc. Then also, because we sold desks, there was obviously a big dichotomy between the B2B services or the B2B sales that we had and the B2C sales. And it was very hard to implement that, because obviously when a Dutch person wants to buy your desk and you ship it from Belgium, they don't have to pay VAT if they have a VAT number. So we had to set up a whole way to check if the VAT number was correct, if we didn't have to charge VAT, yes or no. So that was a big part of what we were doing and trying to implement in the American-focused system of Netsuite. Of course, localization is hugely important. SEO, different languages, different kinds of discounts on different periods within all of these different markets, the European market and the American market. We also had a big issue with everything SKU related, because obviously in Europe we had different desks. As you saw, they were electrical desks, so we had different power sockets. So we had to make sure that the whole ERP system understood which SKU to send based on where the order came from. Of course, we also had different warehouses, different marketplaces that we had to connect to, and also, of course, the customer service tool in terms of RMAs that we had to do and refunds, etc. So this is like the framework that I more or less professionally grew up in terms of the things that we wanted to get out of our ERP system and the closed-off NetSuite system that we had implemented. So as I said, we first did the Shopify implementation. We did the EMI Pro connector between Shopify and Odoo, which was a very interesting project. That was actually the first time that I got into contact with scoping out a whole project, because like I said, we had different bundle products in Shopify, and it was hard to get that to Odoo. So we had to customize the integration a bit. The guys from EMI Pro helped me quite well with that. It was awesome to get into contact with them. And then we switched to a setup with Magento, Celigo, and then to NetSuite to branch Magento and NetSuite together. So you can ask yourself now, why Odoo? Why am I here actually, right? We've been focused on e-commerce a bit, but we then, like I said, started a agency, and we really believe that Odoo is going to be a big part, especially within Europe, of course, with everything that has to do with e-commerce, because it's such a composable and a scalable tool to build upon as an e-commerce company. I also think, and I just said it to someone that I met here, I think one of the reasons why we focus on Odoo a bit right now is that there was a time when everything front-end related, and Shopify as a byproduct of that, was very sexy. But now I think that e-commerce entrepreneurs start to understand that also an efficient backend can be something that is really sexy to set up, because you have a lot of value from that, right? It's nice to have a nice storefront, but if you want to get your operations right, you need a tool like Odoo that you can grow into, and that's exactly what we like. So this is the company that we're working on right now. It's the agency that also has an Odoo part. My colleague Julien is here as well. He's working mostly on the Odoo side of things. I'm going to skip quite rapidly through this, because this just introduces our company a bit. So we're focused on fast-growing e-commerce agencies, also companies, also the companies that scale throughout Europe or want to scale throughout Europe, because you have all those specific cases when you want to grow into Europe. This is our founding team. These are some of our clients. Maybe you know some of them, maybe you know no brand at all. Maybe the brand that has the most probability of you knowing is Loop Earplugs. It's a really awesome company who is growing like hell here in Belgium. This is our team. We're now 28 people. A lot of them are in India, actually, because a lot of our developers, they live in India. They are our employees, but it's a whole separate story. Maybe we can go into that, of how we actually got into contact with them. But a lot of our technical people, they live and work in India. Then maybe, and that's something maybe, I don't know who's in the audience, of course, but the difficulties that we now face and that are actually all pushing e-commerce company towards Odoo or a system like Odoo are those, and it's not that obvious from the start, but there are stricter privacy rules which actually made sure that it was a lot harder to set up your e-commerce company, because before you just needed a Shopify store, you needed some Facebook ads, and then you could just run your company, right? But this doesn't really work that way anymore. Facebook is getting really expensive. And so we see that a lot of our customers are going the multi-channel setup. So you need B2B sales, you need the marketplaces, et cetera, and that's when a tool like Odoo comes in very handy. The point underneath is more or less the same point. Also, there is more personalization that you need. Everybody wants their specific kind of products in their specific markets. You need to have campaigns with discounts that are linked to the specific countries. For example, when there is a discount season in Germany, it's not necessarily the same as the discount period in France, and so on and so on. So the tech requirements for an e-commerce engine, so we call the whole system that we try to build in Odoo the e-commerce engine, as it's like the engine that fires up the whole e-commerce company, right? So it's not the front-end part necessarily, but it's the whole operations underneath it. So they should be able to handle multiple channels. I think Odoo is quite good at that. We're working obviously a bit more, and maybe it's sometimes with integrations that still need to have to be built because they're not available yet. Able to handle different price lists, extremely important. We see a lot of B2B2C kind of setups as well. So you have, of course, the B2C setup. People want to buy directly from your shop. But then you also have maybe other people that sell your or resell your products within other countries. And obviously, maybe they will buy somehow again on your D2C shop, but you want to link all those things together, which is something that we're working on right now to try and make sure that the B2B2C setup is also something that is easy to get a handle of. The multiple VATs and the currencies, it's something that some people don't really understand directly when I say, because everybody's like, yeah, Europe is ready for this, but it's actually not really the case. It's a huge headache for a lot of people, especially when you sell B2C and B2B. But Odoo is actually a platform where everything is built in, right? Because it's a Belgian-based company. They understand, like a lot of people, that those VAT-related issues are issues to be resolved. High level of integration and optimization. I think that's one of the core things that Odoo wants to do. Of course, integrations maybe not, because they want to build everything into one tool, but still we see that some people, some brands, some e-commerce brands, they still want to use for some part of their business, they still want to use a best-of-breed kind of software. Like, for example, a Klaviyo, an email marketing tool, so maybe they want an integration with that if they don't want to use the Odoo email marketing tool. Obviously, we try to understand the big differences between those tools and maybe push them towards a tool that is more integrated, but it's something that sometimes we run into. And of course, it should be hyper scalable and composable. This is really something that I'm through the roof about on Odoo. It's like it's so easy to scale up. We have a lot of companies that start just with 3 or 4 people with 10,000 euros in revenue, and they grow all the way to a couple of million. And Odoo is actually a system that you can do that on, which is like crazy. So this is a classic setup. Obviously, it's quite a basic setup, but it's a setup that we, as an e-commerce agency, see a lot. So you see that Odoo takes a big part of this whole setup, and that actually sometimes the D2C Shopify layer is still something that we implement and that we then integrate with Odoo. But next to that, you have the marketplaces. As I said, it's getting more and more important, because you can not only grow as much anymore on purely the D2C model. And then the B2B platform, hugely important for a lot of our customers to grow upon. And then obviously, you have all the tools within Odoo that we use a lot, finance and accounting, It's a big challenge for us, but it's a big part of the Odoo ecosystem, and it's very important. And then you have the CRM, the sales, the inventory, and the manufacturing, which is, I think, not on here, but a lot of our customers use it. And then, I have some examples of brands. It's not necessarily that we are the partner of all of those brands, but we work a lot, like for example, Jeune Premier. We do everything Shopify related. They're also on Odoo, and Odoo is like, I think, the tool that they use most. We are not their Odoo partner, but we work a lot with the partner that implements everything. And we're actually building an awesome loyalty tool together with the Odoo partner of Jeune Premier on Odoo itself. So it's quite exciting what is happening in the ecosystem with Shopify and Odoo together. Those are some of the examples. So actually, that's more or less it. You can reach me on sam@deardigital.be. And I think I'm a bit early even, but if some people have questions or want to discuss some things, I would be very open to hearing your thoughts or questions. Go for it.
Awesome, thanks. So you were talking about the B2B2C model. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes, very good question. So what we see is that, like I explained a bit during the talk, is that a lot of companies have a direct channel, but next to that, for example, in other countries, they have partners, so businesses that buy their product and then resell it on their websites or via physical points, so physical sales points, right? But still, obviously, the brand itself wants to have as much ownership on the experience as possible. So a lot of times, that customer in that other country comes back to the initial direct-to-consumer sales channel. And obviously, the partner in the other country, so the business that actually generated that lead, wants to have an idea of how many customers are actually going to the website directly, and is there maybe a possibility to do a revenue share of all the leads that are now buying through the direct-to-consumer sales channel, but that actually the other party has given to that brand, right? Because they acquired the customer, they had the first experience, or they owned the first experience, and then the customer might go back to the initial brand. And so there is always a whole discussion about, is there maybe a percentage of the revenue that can be shared internally? And so that whole system and the B2B relationship, because obviously, as you all know, if you buy more products, B2B related, you get a certain discount, but that's mostly manual work. Like you can see after a year of buying that, for example, if you bought for 500,000 euros, you get a 10% discount, or if you bought for 1 million, you get a 20% discount. This is all done manually, and we want to automate it in a way, that is just put into Odoo. So it's a big game in terms of and B2B sales, and then the leads that you actually get through the other businesses that sell for you in the other countries. And having that integrated and not having to do that manually or follow that up manually is something that I think a lot of brands will need in the future. Other people, e-commerce focused or interested in e-commerce? Not really? Okay, well.
Hi, sorry. Your title is saying scale up. Where is the scale up part?
I'm behind so I don't.
No, it's
hear
just
it.
You were mentioning on the title scale up. In what sense do you help companies in scaling up? Because what I can see is mainly a migration, but in terms of scaling up, how can you help?
I didn't really understand a bit further.
How can you scale up? Your title is saying you want to help companies in scaling up their operations, right? And how do you do that exactly? Because what I can see from your slides is more migration. Migration from Shopify to Odoo. And but if you can elaborate a bit more on the scaling up.
The scaling up part of the business, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we do a lot of work together with a lot of brands that are scaling up. Of course, it's their job to scale up their own company, right? But we try to help them with systems that are scalable so that we can help them to scale without too many of the issues that normally come up. For example, the things that I mentioned, like selling in all of the different countries, it's not that easy. And a lot of brands just grow into it and then have all the issues that are related to VAT or to different kinds of products that you have to sell in all those different markets. And we try to help them to figure that out and to get a system in place with which you can handle all of those specific issues. But more related to the scaling up process, that's more to do with like the marketing that we guide them with and the brand you want to build out and how you can go to a different market. This is not really Odoo related. I would say it's more like marketing and sales related. But again, it's hugely important, and we see a lot of brands running into that when they are successful in doing that they have a lot of back-end or logistical related issues, and that's exactly what we are trying to look at, to help them to scale in an efficient way. But yeah, maybe we can talk a little more about the exact scaling. Okay, I think that's more or less it, right? Thanks a lot.